And Thursday beckons on us with strength and resolve, and we respond with equal measure. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here. It's the morning brief on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and I'm here with one half of the goon. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Bukola. Good morning, and welcome to the program. We're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Jeffrey Uzong, as always. We'll keep you updated with the happening, and there's a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, so we'll bring you up to speed with all of the conversation that are necessary to drive home some of the remarks we've heard. Bukola, what are you tracking?
Yes, indeed. Some of the reassuring words from the president, ordering arrest, speaking to the need for the service chiefs to work together. He asked the intelligence chiefs, to ensure that there is intelligence that will deter, the attacks in Benue State. Of course, the president also spoke to the possibilities of peace, and he, in fact, asked, for land that this tragedy can be turned into prosperity. This comes in spite of the appeals for the paramount traditional ruler in Benue State. Of course, we heard the Tortiv yesterday describing the killings as calculated, attempts at land grabbing and sinister. Those were the words of the paramount traditional ruler of Benue State that pretty much, supports much of the commentary on what exactly is responsible for the killings in Benue State. The president also demanded of the Inspector General of Police yesterday arrests. He asked, why have there been no arrests? And this pretty much, tells us exactly what has been happening in Benue State over time. Recall that, this latest round of killings is not the first, not the second in this year alone. Benue State has been a hotbed of violence and attacks, mostly unprovoked. So where have the prior arrests been? And those questions should also be asked of prior killings in Benue State. But pretty much there were a lot of reassurances from the president yesterday that this will be put to rest. And we hope that this will be the last time that we'll be at this table talking about Benue State in negative terms. More importantly, much more than restoring peace, there is the need for safety. And we hope that those conversations will be held behind closed doors. I was expecting more questions as to how much manpower do the security agencies in Benue State have? What's the amount of equipment that they have? Are they well equipped, to fight what is often termed the superior firepower of the marauders in Benue State? Those were the things that we're expecting to hear, much more than peace and, the appeals for everyone to live together. It's more important to know that the agents have what they need, to fight the onslaught of the attackers in Benue State. But we're going to keep our eyes on Benue State this morning as well. Jeffrey.
Finally, the president has visited as a president. Unfortunately, he couldn't go to Yelwata, according to him, because of the flood, the rains, and the bad state of the roads, which is an indictment on either the government, whether it's the state or the federal government. I don't know whose responsibility it is to fix that road. That is impossible when there is flood. He said he would have loved to go there. It's part of what was in his schedule, in his itinerary, but unfortunately he couldn't go there. But yesterday there were so many remarks, but what I feel that should play out, or what should be going forward, is just the stopping of the killing. There were so many things said. There are so many interpretations. Some people were disappointed with the president's statement. Some people were commended him, depending on what side of the divide you're on. So I could see the president went from being very tactical in his speech and being a president and commander-in-chief at some point, but he did more of housekeeping, talking to the politicians, the community leaders, and all of that. Made some suggestion, which I don't know whether it's going to work, about sharing land and all of that, because that's the bone of contention. But the Totiv spoke as a father of the land, and I think that the president should also listen to the Totiv. I know the president has a lot of briefing from the NSA, from the security agencies, but I don't think anybody knows the domain like the traditional rulers and what they've been dealing with for years. He said this is a well-calculated, orchestrated genocidal invasion with the aim of land grabbing and all of the things he said by header terrorists and all their accomplices in that sense. So I just feel that the president should listen more to the people on ground, listen less to the political class, because he spent a lot of time talking to the political class. He has a lot of information, I suppose, because he's the president, so I'm sure that the president believes that a lot of things happening in Benue has to do with politics as well. Even the CDS had mentioned that some of the things that are being dealt with or that they are struggling with in Benue State is more of that can be resolved politically. But people have been killed. Ours is just to see that nobody gets killed again. But I don't know whether this is going to give closure, whether the people got assurances. The president has told the CDS, the Inspector General of Police, which is what we expect, to do their work, arrest these people, these perpetrators, get them. But I also expected the president to speak to those terrorists directly, and some charges, some people would have expected him to give some direct orders, but perhaps those things will be sent in the behind closed doors, because he has invited all of them to a meeting in Abuja and said we can turn this tragedy into opportunity, because these things happen in a lot of places. But there's a lot that is expected of the president. So let's say it again, the box up on the president's table. If the governor is failing to do his work for whatever reason, the box stop on the president's table, he knows what to do and how to act, because he's sworn oath to protect the lives and property of citizens of Nigeria, and he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He went to visit the victims and their families and all of that. But I expected more commander-in-chief-like directive told the terrorists or whoever is killing people, speaking to them. But what he said, Bukola, was basically to say the authorities, get these guys arrested. This should never happen again. By those terrorists, what are the direct orders from the president to them? Is it that people carry AK-47 now, they'll be in danger or being shot at sight? What exactly is the directive? We do not know. We don't know the SOP, standard operation practice, as far as that is concerned. But for all of us who are Nigerians, whatever is going on, whether it's politics, whether it's invasion, whatever it is, let this killing stop. It's just enough. Enough is enough. So the president, the buck is on your table. The governor, the buck is also partially on your table. Bukola.
Yes, indeed. And, of course, that will be our first port of call this morning. We'll be looking at the president's eventual visit to Benue State, the outcomes, what it means for Benue in terms of security. And, of course, we'll also be touching on other issues that affect the state of the nation. And our guests will be here to weigh in on all of them. So stay with us for that first conversation.
Well, judiciary, they say, is the last hope of the common man. So we will be talking about the issues around the judiciary today on the program, reforms and all of that today on the program. So we will be talking with Farotimi on the state of the nation and another lawyer on the issue of judicial reform. So we're going to look at all sides of the conversation, because it takes a lot of parts, moving parts, to build a nation.
And finally on the show this morning, we'll all be talking with a 90s pop star Alex O, who has made a comeback to the music scene with a music video powered by AI. Yes, you heard me correctly, artificial intelligence. So what's Alex O's strategy to take the music scene again, as he did in the 90s with hits like Celebrate, Banana, and the others? And so if you're, the bloomers this morning, the baby boomers, or how did they call them? You just want to, you must be a part of this conversation, and get those nostalgic memories back with some of the experiences that Alex will be sharing with us this morning on the program. It promises to be exciting.
All right, so remember all the handles you can get to us with. There's email, there's WhatsApp, there's also CTV Morning Bridge, #, on X, and we'll be right here to amplify your voice. But we'll now take you to what the dailies are saying in just a moment. Okay, let's get to the Vanguard newspaper. The Vanguard is leading with, of course, Benue story. Benue killings will confront land grabbing head on to bring peace. Will confront land grabbing head on to bring peace. That's according to the president yesterday. As we said, for you to really give your characterization and interpretation of the president's position as far as Benue is concerned, I think you shouldn't listen to just snippets. You should listen to the entire presentation or speech he made in that town hall meeting. So at the end is when he talked about the issue of going after the criminals, as he referred to them, who are killing people. But on the issue of land grabbing, he had talked about there's perhaps, let me paraphrase, love in sharing. But that is the bone of contention. I don't know whether that's going to work in any shape or form, because the people are saying that their lands are being invaded, their people are being killed. If you listen to the Tortive, he was very unapologetic. He didn't speak as a politician. He spoke as a traditional ruler who wants his people protected. Of course, the president is a president, but he's also a politician. The governor is a governor, but he's also a politician. So there was a bit of some political correctness in some of their speeches and all of that. But the president said, whatever this is, we can turn this into this tragedy. It can be turned into an opportunity for prosperity. How that is going to work, I don't know. But he told the governor a couple of things. Look, more like governance 101 in that sense. Carry your people along, for all the political nuances that are behind this. Work on this. It can be better. Work with your people. There shouldn't be division. You are not made governor to bury people, to raise orphans and build orphanages and have widows. You're there to make the lives of the people better. Not necessarily to make them happy, but to make their lives better. In his own paraphrasing of those things, where he talked about he knows he's hated like hell and all of that. So he said not everybody will like you. But beyond those talk and those rhetorics, we need action. We need action. The security agencies don't need to be told what they are supposed to do. What is expected is that they are supposed to be given the tools to work. And we hope that in a few days we will hear from the IGP or whoever is supposed to do those arrests to arrest, and those people must be brought to book and face the full weight of the law for mercilessly killing children and other people in Yawata and other parts of Benue State. Bukola.
Yes, there's more to come on Newspaper Review. This time we have from the front page of This Nigeria, we have Benue as well featuring as the big story. Listen to this. Get the criminals. Tinubu orders orders security chiefs, advocates ranching. Tortive describes killings as unprovoked and genocidal. And Jeffrey, you were saying yesterday that the president combined strategy in much of his comments after the traditional ruler and the governor had spoken. And it says quite a lot, because if the traditional ruler had described exactly, what the situation of things, were, and the president, doubled down on the need for peace, calling for the, release of land for ranching, and the need for us to, learn to live with each other, then the president might have information that we do not have, and maybe perhaps supports the suggestions that come through time and again, that there may be some political dimension to what is happening in Benue State. So more importantly, as Jeffrey had said, we need to stop talking about killings in Benue State and begin again to talk about, progress in agricultural development. Benue was at a point the food basket of the nation, but many of those farmers are unable to return to their farms anymore. A lot of them are now in internally displaced persons camps. And sometimes, the reports come through from Benue that, in fact, those camps are not safe and that sometimes they're susceptible to attacks. Those are the real issues. So we must, come to a decision as to what exactly the vision of, Benue is as far as development is concerned. And we must also end the killings. Let's take a look at some more stories on the front page of This Nigeria this morning. Senate gives NNPCL 1-week ultimatum to account for over 210 trillion naira missing funds. That's it. That's another big story on the front page of this Nigeria this morning. And, this speaks to the calls time and again for more transparency, from the nation's oil company, the NNPCL. So, Nati, I believe Jeffrey has also spoken in time past about unaccounted funds from the state-owned oil company. So where are the auditors, and what should be the reports that should be coming out of this particular call? And then the oversight, it also speaks to oversight, the committees oversighting the NNPCL, but from both the Senate and the National Assembly. And so we have joining us on the program our very dependable media analyst, Mr. Dayo Akitobi, who has since joined us to weigh in on some of these matters. Of course, Mr. Akitobi, we know that you've been following from the onset. The president has finally visited, that very important visit, not just to condole, but the statesmanship, the presence that is required, and the reassurance that should come from the president. Did you see that yesterday?
Yesterday's visit was underwhelming, to tell you the truth. First of all, it was too little too late. It should have happened much, much earlier. The thinking that it's better late than never sometimes doesn't actually meet what is necessary. And yesterday's show looked more like for optics. First of all, it was disappointing that he didn't actually get to the scene of the crime, that he stopped in Makurdi. It looked to me more like a carnival or a campaign event as opposed to real, genuinely felt condolences and sorrow about what has happened. I also think he didn't go far enough in terms of his mandate to the security chiefs. I think some heads should have rolled, really. I think it's not good enough to say, go and find these people, go and kill them, go and take them out. You've got to arrest them, you've got to bring them to book. He could have stayed in Abuja to do that. Besides, the security chiefs already know what their job is. It doesn't take the president to have to tell them what their job is before they actually do it. So it means they're derelict in their duty, and some people should have been held to account. That's what I wanted to see, was that the president would actually let the people of Benue know that this is not acceptable. We're taking concrete steps. I think there's been too much dialogue, talking about forming a peace committee, a white paper that will gather dust on a table somewhere after some time. I think the situation is way beyond the measures, which look just like papering over the issue, just trying to make people feel assured a bit. But there were no concrete steps that came out of that visit that would reassure people that this is not going to happen again. I think some people should have been sacked. I think the notion of everybody clapping after he made a statement made it look more like a campaign event, lining children up, school children up to welcome him. That didn't speak very well to the notion of the fact that this was a grave issue. Take, for example, the state governor declared a public holiday as opposed to days of mourning. I mean, these are 100 human beings and not chickens. And we're declaring a public holiday because the president is coming to visit on what should have been a condolence visit. Then look at the levity with which our president said, sorry, I can't get to the scene of the crime because the roads are bad, it's raining. I mean, these are very poor excuses. This doesn't rise to the level of statesmanship, in my view.
Well, you've said it, and that's why I said everybody saw if you watch the entire thing, you get to see and make your submission. But just before we get to another paper, I wanted to find out from you, because it appears from what from at least where I sat, it looks like the president has an information we don't have, because he spent 95, let me not use a data now, but a lot of time doing more of political housekeeping than even giving orders in terms of, in fact, the time he gave orders was towards the end of his speech, where he talked to the IGP, he talked to the NIA, and then talked to the military, the CDS, where he talked about all of that. So at the end of the day, one wonders exactly, it looks like the president has an information that this is more politically driven or something than even what we are talking about, because some people expected him to say, well, these criminals, enough is enough. Henceforth, if we see you with AK-47 with your cattle or anything, your life is already at risk. Whatever you see, you know, we saw that with Muhammadu Buhari at some point, I think towards the election, when he said, better be careful around this election. Anything you see, the military have my orders, else you're going to see something really brutal. But he spent a lot of time talking about the governor has to do this, more like governance 101 to the governor. And I was just looking at the governor, I felt for him, like showing him the ropes in that sense, with the greatest sense of respect. So do you think the president has an information we don't have? Because the top chief is saying, we know what is responsible for this. And I'm not mincing words. This is what is responsible.
The
president was just being tactically de-escalating so that, what exactly do you think was going on here?
The Tortive was the one who made the most impact yesterday because he was the one who hit the nail on the head and talked about what really was going on. I think the president is looking at it from a political standpoint. A lot of what he said related to political issues in terms of alliances, in terms of dialogue, in terms of negotiation. And if he knows what well, naturally you would expect that the president will know what we don't know from a security standpoint. He gets security briefings every day, and not all of it can be exposed to the public because it deals with national security. But on a political front, let's remember, first of all, his SSG is from Benue. The SSG, Akume, a previous governor, and the current governor, Father Aliyah, they've been at daggers drawn from the beginning.
From day one.
From day one. And there's a lot of speculation that it is their contention that is brewing violence from opposing camps, that is Akume's supporters, Aliyah's supporters who are jawing at each other. So the president probably believes that there might be a political dimension to this crisis, and that may be where he thinks his strength is. Okay, yeah, so he's giving an abstract order to the security chiefs, but where his strength is political solutions. And so that seems to be where he was trying to point his direction to, is there could be a political solution to this, and I'm ready to broker that piece from a political standpoint, because that's where my strength is.
Why do you think he didn't speak to the terrorists?
Well, that...
because he spoke to the service chiefs to get them. Yes. I mean, a pronouncement to looking at the camera, looking at the hall and saying this, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do, but that is why I said that from the beginning, that it didn't seem like there was a concerted, passionate effort to address the issue head-on where it belongs. He has farmed out the responsibility to his security chiefs as opposed to taking the leadership himself and saying, as the father of the country, I want to take these substantive steps and say, terrorists, we're coming after you, shoot on sight. Anybody with an AK-47, we're locking you up, we're throwing away the key. The kind of statements that would throw fear into the hearts of anyone who's perpetrating this evil. He didn't do that.
But if the president is doubling down on the possibility of a political dimension to this, which would be sinister because we're talking about hundreds of lives now by the count, is it the same situation on the plateau where we also have, records of carnage from over the years, and that speaks to a serious gap in security, what we call the security architecture? Why do you think the president didn't also speak to that, the need for increase in manpower and equipment for the security operatives who are supposed to fight this and, act on the front of deterrence?
If you listen to the Tortive, he said, for example, he said this is decades-long land-grabbing issues. He called it genocide. He said this is not something that has just started overnight, and it predated several administrations, including the last one, the one before, regardless of whether it was PDP or APC. So, at the end of the day, there are people who are using herders' cover to perpetrate evil. Now, on the president's side, remember, unlike President Buhari or President Obasanjo, he's not necessarily a defense specialist. He's not an army, or he's not been in any of the armed forces. So he gets his briefings from his national security advisor, from the service chiefs, from people who can tell him. But his own experience is not necessarily in combating this type of situation. So he depends a lot on what is being told to him by his experts, and it is from that he begins to try to take his actions.
Okay, let's go to the next paper, the last one. New Telegraph is leading with the Middle East crisis. FG plans emergency evacuation of Nigerians from Israel and Iran. as over 400 EU citizens evacuated from Israel. Reports has it that Iranian ex-president Ahmadinejad survives assassination attempt. Trump considers U.S. joining Israeli strikes on Iran. Your thoughts?
Interesting. Well, it's really sad what's happening between Israel and Iran, but this has festered for so long that I think it needs to come to a head. I think the problem in the Middle East needs an ultimate solution. Let's remember that the current crisis began on October 7 when Hamas went and invaded Israel. And ever since then, there's been restiveness, there's been strife, there's been war in the region. Iran is a new entrant, although there's been tension between Iran and Israel since time immemorial.
Forever.
But Iran has just joined itself into the fray in what is going on. And it's at a point now where Iran has nuclear capability. Iran has always been tried to be kept in check because I remember George Bush described axis of evil. He called Afghanistan, he mentioned Iran, 3 countries. Iran was one of them who he said were the axis of evil in the Middle East who are capable of destabilizing the entire region. Well, Iran has now jumped into the fray. They've openly attacked Israel. They say they are not backing down. Their leader yesterday said they don't care how many lives it will cost. They're not backing down from this, and they will go toe-to-toe with Israel, and they will do whatever it takes. So at the moment, there's back and forth. Iran will attack, Israel will attack back, and innocent people are caught in the middle. So you can't blame the EU for trying to evacuate its people. Nigeria is also looking at what should we do to our citizens who are caught in the strife in the area and who could be collateral damage.
Well, we hope that, these things come to a definite end. The world certainly cannot afford another war. We're dealing with Ukraine already and the Israel-Gaza war. But we must thank you very much, Mr. Akitobi, for your time and always coming through for us
always
on the newspaper review segment. Mr. Dayo Akitobi is a media analyst. Thank you so much for your time on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And this takes us to our first break. And when we return, we'll kick off with the very first leg of our conversation. We're staying with Benue, and then we'll look at other aspects of the polity. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
How come no arrest has been made? I expect there should be arrests of those criminals. Christopher, thank you very much. I watch your comments and I know you can't be tired of staying in the bush and Oloyede and Bashar. Thank all of you. But we need to keep our ears to the ground. Let's get those criminals. Let's get them out. So DGNIA and DGSSS, read through your information channels and let's have tangible intelligence that this will not occur again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We do have grave concern about the misinformation and misrepresentation of the security crisis in Benue State. Your Excellencies, it is not herder farmers clashes, it's not communal clashes, it's not repressor attacks or skirmishes. It is this misinformation that has led to suggestions such as Remain tolerant, negotiate for peace, learn to live with your neighbors. What we are dealing with here in Benue is a calculated, well-planned, full-scale genocidal invasion and land-grabbing campaign by header terrorists and bandits, which has been on for decades and is worsening every year. Wrong diagnosis will always lead to wrong treatment. So we are dealing with something far more sinister than we think about. It's not learning to live with your neighbors. It is dealing with a war.
Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Adele Farotimi, is a civil rights activist and the National Organizing Secretary of the Afenifere Social Political Group. Mr. Farotimi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
As we begin examining the state of our nation, I think the natural place that is fair to start from is what's playing out in Benue. I don't know whether you have been able to binge through the remarks of everybody who spoke there, from the governor, the president, and the totive, but those are just excerpts. And if you listen through, the president did a lot of political housekeeping, but while the totive took another dimension to say, well, I know there's a political dimension to it, but this is more of a genocidal invasion. And one of the things he said, which is my question to you, how you characterize that statement of the totive. The totive says, if we wrongly diagnose, we're not going to get the right treatment. Mr. Farotimi.
Well, because I knew I was going to be coming on your program, I was compelled to listen to watch the video from Benue. So I was compelled to listen to the president. I listened to the governor, and I heard the compelling words of the totive. And I must say very quickly that it would have been better if the president didn't go. The only thing worthy of anybody's time are the words of the totive, who spoke extensively to the reality of the situation in the Benue Trough and spoke eloquently to the pains of the victims. Other than that, all the president had to offer were mere windows into his own preoccupation and what truly concerns his aides and assistants. In 2018, February, when Buhari went to Dapchi, you would recall that they ensured that they went with the red carpet so that when he came out of his limousine in Dapchi, he could step onto a red carpet. In Benue, they knew exactly what was of importance to the president, so they ensured that they put out the necessary theater in preparation for 2027. The death of over 200 people did not count for anything much. They were mentioned probably only in passing. You would have been excused for thinking that it was a political event, and the president did make it sound as if the problem was a political one that should be resolved politically, even though I thank the totive for ensuring that in spite of the comical clapping that revealed a Kafkaesque dystopian reality in our society, where in spite of the fact that over 200 persons have just been brutally murdered and burnt in their homes, persons could still find the idiocy to be clapping over everything and anything, almost in a manner that even challenges one's sanity. But that's where we find ourselves, unfortunately.
All right, so one of the things you said yesterday, and before leaving the issue of Benue, and let me also ask you in terms of solution, because what we expect is that no matter what he said, whoever said what, we just want these innocent villagers and these innocent people, especially within the rural areas, to stop being killed in their sleep for not trying to hurt anybody and just living their lives. If there were suggestion you would like to put out to put an end to this carnage, what would that suggestion be, Mr. Farotimi?
It will be that the Nigerian state should stop being complicit in the murder of those who should be its own citizens. Sat right there in your studio, interestingly, in the exact same studio from where you're broadcasting today. I believe that was in 2022. Commodore Lawumi informed this nation how members of Boko Haram and Islamist terrorists were sat in Buhari's regime, and how a list of such sponsors had been given to that government since 2016. I don't hear anything about any one of those being talked about today. And yet the president was pointing comically at his service chiefs and ordering them, demanding to know where the murderers were, where the terrorists were, if anybody had been arrested. Is it the same government that had not arrested anyone since 2016 that is going to be chasing anybody around 9 years later? The critical thing is that the government needs to come clean and be honest about the fact that it is complicit in the senseless genocide that is going on in Nigeria. How can it be that we have a government, and the primary duty of any government, wherever, whatever kind of government it might be, whether it is theocratic, one-party state, 10-party state, it does not matter. Whether it's even a dictatorship, the primary reason a state exists is to protect the lives and properties of its citizens. And we've almost lost our capacity to be shocked. 200 human beings were murdered. And the president went to Benue and he was talking almost as if he was prepping for a campaign rally. And the only person who appeared to retain sufficient cognition to draw attention to the gravity of the occasion was the tortive. It was more or less like they went to dance on the graves of those they have not, some of whom may never even be identified before being buried in mass graves. So, in all honesty, let the state begin to do what it should do, protect the lives and properties, and stop being complicit. The complicity of this government, the APC, is established beyond argument, and it should just really repent and begin to protect Nigerian lives.
So what, Mr. Farotimi, when you say complicity, what do you mean?
Yeah. It's very clear. Let me just make a state. Let me make a case for this. It was Bugaje who came out and told each and every Nigerian, there's multiple videos online, and said that in the lead up to the 2015 election, the APC imported terrorists into Nigeria. He said so, and he made it very clear. Multiple times during the Buhari years, terrorists were attacking Nigeria, particularly in Kaduna, and they made it clear that they had a deal that had not been honored. They did not say so in hiding. They'd been out in the public space. Multiple occasions, members of the Middle Belt Forum have come into the public space to speak of terrorist camp in the tri-state area between Benue, Plateau, and Nasarawa, and how members of the Nigerian security forces are well aware of these terrorist camps. I've never done anything about it. The president went to that place today, and you could hear him clearly talking as if we're dealing with a political problem. We're talking about over 200 human beings, somebody's children, somebody's husband, somebody's mother, somebody's father, human beings. We're not talking about, even if these were rats, it should be worthy of some sort of scientific curiosity to find out exactly what has happened. But we're talking about human beings, and the president is talking about committees. It's almost like it was a theater to fulfill all righteousness. The only thing is that it wasn't righteous at all. So if you're asking what the solution is, I'm saying the government needs to stop colluding. And if you still want further proof, listen to what Commodore Lawumi had to say in your studio. Commodore Lawumi was a spook. You don't hear those kind of people speak in the public space. And he came into your studio and he spoke without hesitation. He named names, at least as much as he could. But there was something curious that he said, if you go back and listen to that tape. He said he was confident that by 2023, when there was a change of government, we will be shocked by the revelation we will get. He presumed that the will of the people would prevail and that we would have a change of government in 2023.
Mr. Farotimi,
yes.
Whether those allegations of complicity are true or not, we hope that, that forms part of the conversations that are being held behind closed doors. Speaking of which,
that is
one of the things that was, visibly absent from the president's commentary yesterday was the capacity of the security agents to deal with the issues on ground. We cannot talk enough about that. Is there any optimism on your part that that is being addressed behind closed doors? Because that speaks to the ability to respond to it, either it's in Benue or El Plateau or Nasarawa State. Are you optimistic that those conversations are being held behind closed doors?
Let me be very frank with you. There is very little about our situation to make one optimistic about the government's role in the insecurity playing out in Nigeria. If there is anything the government could possibly do, it might be to get out of the way of those who are prepared to defend themselves and let there be an end to this insinuation that the only thing the government ever do is to come before the attacks, disarm the local population, and then leave them as sitting ducks. So if the government and the security agencies are incapable of defending citizens, I think it was the DSS Director General that came out the other day, and he was counseling citizens to be prepared to defend themselves. That's not a bad idea. If it's time that we Kukuma recognize the fact that the state has failed and we may for a season be allowed to defend ourselves, I'm sure that Benue people are not incapable of defending themselves. If the state that has rendered them incapable of defending themselves would allow them to do so, they would defend themselves. So in reality, any security, any attempt to be imploring the security agents to do what they have refused to do for well over a decade, this didn't start with Bulaba. It started before him. And they haven't been able to do anything about this. Every time we talk about Benue, it's about blood, unnecessary blood being shed. Every time the middle belt comes into focus, that is what it's always about. So I'm not optimistic that the Nigerian security forces, in the absence of clear readiness by the government to change their operating instructions, they can't do anything. I was told that the last attack, they had a military formation, special forces, less than 600 meters away from the point where the massacre was taking place. What happened to the soldiers who will be there? Or they are waiting for instruction before they defend citizens. I have no confidence in the Nigerian armed forces, I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Farotimi, let's talk about subnationals now. I literally almost empathized for the governor yesterday. The reason is quite simple, because it felt like the president was giving the governor governing 101. So I want you to speak to the issue of the quote-unquote inadequacy, lack of capacity, because when I use the word lack of capacity cautiously, because they've said they don't have any control or command in that sense, so all of the security apparatus, because everything is in Abuja. The president is the commander-in-chief, he controls everything. So sometimes I can even see a CP squaring up against a governor. We've seen it over and over. So he was talking about the issue around state police. So what can be done to make governors begin to be a bit more effective within the premise of what we have on our hand, hoping that maybe someday there will be state police if they too don't end up abusing it?
Look, we're not where we are because of a shortage of ideas. We're where we are by design. You have a situation where the Constitution says that the governor is the chief security officer of the state, but he cannot even he can't give any order to the commissioner of police in his state. And this is supposed to be in a federation. I'm currently in America. The county has its own police, well armed. The state has its own police, and then you have the FBI. But in Nigeria, supposedly another federation, everything flows through Abuja. So our problems are not by accident, they are by design. We shouldn't be talking, this state police argument has been in place. We in Afenifere have been demanding for this for decades. It's nothing new, it's been there forever. And even when the president was busy with his government 101, exactly what was the content of the rambling? Exactly what? How do you compare the madness going on in Benue to Lagos? 200 human beings just got burnt for no reason. We're just deodorizing madness in that country. That's just the truth. That's not governance 101. That is nonsense 101, if the truth be told. Your state police, yes. And I'm shocked that it is the same man who used to sing state police like Christmas carol. That is not is no one good observer to the presidency, and now state police is something that cannot be done in 2 years. Amazing. But that could be a solution to most of these problems. But the problems were always part of the design. So I'm not going to be railing against the windmill. Is a non-issue. Nobody needs to be told that we should decentralize all these things, especially security. I'm talking about state police right now. I'm not going to be saying anything new or revolutionary. It's been there on the plate for decades. That we don't have it is further proof of the lie that we call federation. What federation? We call it a federation.
And so, Mr. Farotimi, your lack of confidence in this, the Nigerian state, or perhaps this administration, is not in doubt. But how much confidence do you have in the moves by an aggregation of opposition members to unseat this administration? And the president has, in fact, said that he has no plans to interfere with any political party registration. But we haven't heard anything from INEC as far as allegations that it is sitting on the registration of intending political parties. How do you weigh on these mix of issues?
Number one, I find it ludicrous when I see Nigerian politicians running around claiming that they are forming coalitions. I find it ludicrous when the victims of their shenanigans begin to get excited on account of such shenanigans. Let me just put it that way. In reality, it is the victims, the Nigerian people themselves, who need to be looking to rally behind common interest and common causes. That you see politicians jumping together to get into the APC, or banding together trying to form another collective to battle the APC. It's just a contestation for office. It's not a contestation found on the interest of the people. The last person in the calculation of these people are the victims of Nigeria, who have been commonly assailed by them. What Nigerian politician, barring one or two exceptions, has ever really given any concern for the Nigerian? So I'm not interested in the coalition of politicians. I am more interested in Nigerian victims coming together to demand an overhaul of the electoral system and a return of some hope, some confidence, of some measure of integrity in that system, not the battered system that we currently have, destroyed almost beyond recognition after what happened in 2023. So anything the politicians are doing, it does. In fact, it alarms me when I see them.
But Mr. Farotimi, would your disposition change if the presidential candidate of the Labour Party were to become a key figure in this opposition coalition, so to speak?
Let me tell you this. I would be shocked if the Nigerian ruling class, the political parties, would come to a point where they would agree that somebody like Peter Obi should be the arrowhead of that coalition. I would be shocked because, frankly speaking, it would suggest that they've come to understand that the party is over and it has to end. And that might perhaps offer them an orderly way of getting out of the mess they've contrived to place Nigeria in after the many years of the misrule of this country. But I have no such illusions. They are not a people ruled by altruism. They are almost always governed by selfish interests. Rarely ever enlightened. Enlightened selfish interest should inform such a coalition, because it is obvious that the only one amongst the lot who could possibly capture the imagination of the youth is Peter Obi, but it is not likely to happen. I don't see them doing that. I don't see them doing that. That's just the truth. That's me. I don't have any confidence.
Yeah, Mr. Farotimi, I would like you to speak to the issue of INEC. Some young persons now have taken it upon themselves. They are raising a campaign about fixing INEC. We all know what played out in the last election, and the pronouncement of the Apex Court as far as that election is concerned. But the advocates and those at the vanguard are saying one of the ways to engender confidence and transparency is just to make electronic transmission of results as strong side by side with the Form EC8A. It looks like a tough job right now. We don't know what will happen before 2027. In fact, just yesterday or 2 days ago, the president flagged off a new INEC headquarters HQ annex. And of course, they are getting flags for all of that. If you were to propose very fundamental reform that will bring people back to the table, because the Nigerian people have to be involved in choosing their leaders. If they're not confident that the managers of that process are not efficient or are not fair, then we're just joking here. What would you propose?
Well, I voted for the first time in 1993. Incidentally, we were celebrating or mourning the tragedy that the day eventually became. As at that time, we had no computers for elections. It was just the electoral officer with their pens and paper, and we would queue. It was called option A4, open ballot. We queued. And by the end of the day, we had the result, even though those who are unhappy with the way we dared to express our sovereign right annulled that election. Now, in 2023, we were told that beavers would work. There will be real-time upload to IREV, and every one of us would be able to see how the election went. On this back of this and on the strength of this, we got people involved in the electoral system, new people registered in high numbers, and then Mahmoud did his magic. Now, the minimum anybody can expect to place on the table before you might find the kind of engagement that is meaningful in 2027 would be to ensure that there is automatic transmission of results so that we cut out all these glitches. Because in spite of these glitches, those who did what they did were the first to come out repeatedly to assure us that they will transmit these results. So it's a minimum irreducible. What Peter is doing, I am 110% behind him. I am grateful for the like of him taking on that campaign, going around the country, trying to sensitize our people. It is the minimum irreducible. If we can't have confidence in the electoral process, we might as well just throw up our hand, especially when you have an INEC that is already refusing to register. What kind of democracy are we practicing? Even in the First Republic, we didn't have a party, we didn't have an electoral umpire that was busy registering people up and down the place, acting like, might as well open an office for them in the APC headquarters, as far as I'm concerned, though, please. So I really don't see anything wrong with that demand for electoral reform, and I really don't believe that there will be any serious electioneering process in place in 2027 in the absence of guarantees that there will be electronic transmission of the results.
Speaking of guarantees, what could have pointed to perhaps the body language that will suggest the disposition of the administration towards a support for electoral reforms before the 2027 election would have been a reference to it in the President's Democracy Day speech. But there was nothing of the sort. Should we run away with that, or we should stay with assurances of the committee meetings of the National Assembly that have been tasked with the responsibility of deliberating on the items in the proposed electoral reforms?
You see, I think it will be not only simplistic, but exceedingly foolish for anyone to expect that the APC government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be interested in an electoral reform that would ensure transparency in the electoral process. This is a government that is the beneficiary of an electoral heist. I say that full-chested. I say that as the person who was charged with the duty of collecting from EC8A, from INEC in Lagos State. And I say without equivocation that Segun Agbaje, the then INEC commissioner in Lagos State, could not produce a single form EC8A. Not one could be produced because the entire result in Lagos State was a fraud. And that is the basis upon which the man sits in office, and you expect him to reform. But I expect that the Nigerian people, who are the victims of this gross abuse of powers and gross abuse of processes, have every right to demand these reforms, and they should. If that includes trooping onto the street peacefully, if I may underline, to make those demands, we should. But we should not, the power is not served a la carte. Even Bulaba said so. You grab it, you snatch it, you run with it. But it is the right of citizens to expect to be given the power to vote and decide who rules them. And we should be making that demand very clearly, without any equivocation or apologies to anybody.
Yeah, but Mr. Farotimi, your response to the question taken, but some would disagree with you that the entire election result from Lagos in 2023 were a fraud, because the fact that the president could have lost his own stronghold, a place that had been his own stronghold over the years, is testament that the results from the elections in Lagos were free and fair.
You see, I'm not too good with arguments that are devoid of evidence. What I just said to you is empirical. I was charged with the duty of receiving electoral material from INEC in Lagos State. The result we had and the result that INEC declared, they are completely at opposite ends from each other. That was one. INEC, who was meant to give us the Form EC8A, which is the form which is the basis for the demand that transmission of election results should be electronic. The form that should have been loaded onto IREF from Beavers is the EC8A. Give us Form EC8A in Lagos, which is the center where everybody were. They couldn't give us a single sheet of paper. And you are talking about substantial compliance, but that has become academic now. The important thing is the future. If we're going to be having anything called an election worthy of its name in 2027, we shouldn't be debating electronic transmission. It shouldn't be something left to the discretion of an INEC official any longer. Since the administrative law made by INEC has been discounted and rendered useless, not only by INEC, but by the judiciary, who accepted that INEC could do as it pleased, then let it become part of the law that makes it then mandatory that this should be transmitted. That's not asking for too much.
All right, Mr. Farotimi, as we wind down, just the last question. Of course, we introduced you as a rights activist and all of that, so we cannot end the conversation without the issues of fundamental human rights. Yesterday, one of the things the president said, he was telling the governor, not everybody will like you. And he said, talking to himself, they hate me like hell, but I'm president. But I would, under democracy, defend and protect my accusers and abusers. But some people have felt that the environment is hostile to dissenting voice. So what do you make of that two positions?
Let me put it this way. The difference between this Bulaba age and the age of Abacha is that in the age of Abacha, there was clarity as to the exact nature of the government that we were dealing with. in the age of Bulaba, there is that ambiguity as to whether we are in a military dictatorship or a democracy.
Just a moment. What do you mean by Bulaba? Well, our president's name is Bola Tinubu. I'm not sure what you're talking about. You say Bulaba.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that came from that Bala Blue episode. I should have said this Tinubu times. I'm sorry, please. That I'm sure that anyway, in these Tinubu times, it's very easy to forget exactly what kind of government we have in place, because I have personally, and I'm not speaking to my Kitty episode, I'm speaking to other things. I don't come to the public space to talk about what I'm dealing with sometimes, but the truth is, the level of repression of free speech, the readiness to criminalize every civic disagreement. You write something and a member of the Nigerian ruining class will come out crying that is about them, even when you are not talking to them. And then they'll use the police or the DSS to be harassing people. They may be pastors. It's always very interesting that in what should be a democracy, it is becoming increasingly dangerous to speak. I don't know exactly how much of this is directly traceable to the president or how much of this is traceable to his temperament. But unfortunately, when the fish will rot, it usually begins from the head. And there is always somebody on whose desk the buck must stop. The reality is that the Nigerian has really been more repressed than he is in these moments. So it's for the president to determine exactly how hollow his protestations are. But Nigerians are not feeling the kind of breeze of freedom that he's projecting. If anything, it's been the odious stench of dictatorship that's been in the nose.
Mr. Dele Farotimi, thank you so much. Outspoken, fearless, civil rights activist, National Organizing Secretary of Afenifere Social Political Group. Mr. Farotimi, thank you, and I'm sure you can catch a good sleep now for dragging you out of your bed at this time. But we appreciate the sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, I'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we will be talking about the judiciary and the rule of law. The chairman of the Attorneys General, the body of states Attorneys General of the Federation, will be joining us in just a moment to give his perspective on some judicial conversation we'll be having in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we're still very much staying with issues that, have bearing on the heartbeat of the nation, from the, Benue killings to electoral reform. We're also reflecting on judicial reform amid concerns of lack of transparency and corruption in the judicial sector, most of which border on election cases being determined on technicalities. We have contradicting, court judgments from courts of coordinate jurisdiction. The NJC has moved in recent times, wielding the big stick, demanding in the first instance that were last month that the Imo State government should reverse the appointment of a judicial officer, and then suspending 3 judicial officers for 1 year in the first instance, without payment of the benefits. So what are the implications of these reforms, and how far do they go, and what are the other areas of reforms that are required in the judicial sector? We have joining us to have this conversation the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Benue State, Mr. Ben Udo, Ebonyi State, I beg your pardon. We've been talking a lot about Benue. Mr. Ben Udo joins us on the program today. He's also the Chairman Attorneys General's, I believe, body in the country. Mr. Udo, thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the program.
My pleasure.
So let's start with the move by the NJC, I said earlier in the commentary, to suspend some judicial officers. In both, letter and spirit, How has this, impacted on the judiciary to sort of restore sanity for starters?
It's my pleasure once more, and I am glad to be with you this morning. The reform by the judiciary, it's something to commend. It's a law profession is a noble profession that is guided by rules, and the NJC regulates the conduct of the judges, while the legal practitioners disciplinary committee regulates the conduct of the private legal practitioners. So in the move that is currently ongoing in sanitizing the system, we commend the NJC, because if they don't do that, it will be tantamount to political interference and attempt to influence judicial outcome or delay in the implementation of judgment. So what they are doing by disciplining judges is commendable, and that serves as a check and balance. Otherwise, if they don't do so, so many of the judges in the country will abuse judicial processes that they are supposed to uphold. And this goes a long way to tell you about the rule of law. The rule of law is the lifeblood of every functional democracy. So when it fails, governance collapses and trust erodes. So the Nigerian judiciary is not just a dispenser of justice. The Nigerian judiciary is a stabilizing institution in our constitutional democracy. If they fail to do so, if NJC failed to do so in disciplining the erring judges, and legal practitioner disciplinary committee failed also to do so in disciplining private legal practitioners, then definitely governance will collapse, trust will erode, and our functional democracy will fail.
All right. The reason why this is particularly important, Honorable Commissioner, is because, as you said, this is the fulcrum. If this collapses and then the entire thing has collapsed, they say the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. But let's talk about a few things. Let's begin with basic housekeeping within the judiciary. For those of us who are outside in, we look from outside into the judicial space. We appreciate some of the efforts so far by the NJC, as my colleague has alluded to, the reprimand and disciplinary action. But what do you think is going on with the issues of what we're seeing in the... I don't think it's new. I don't think whether it's the lawyers themselves that are causing the problem, or is a lack of clarity from the bench, or is just mischief from the politicians, where we will get a judgment from courts that is supposed to give some sense of finality or some level of closure, but it just opens up a box of confusion because everybody is looking at that judgment from different lenses, and all of these parties have lawyers helping to interpret, and they are all grandstanding. For instance, what is playing out in Osun State?
I didn't get your question clearly, sir.
So my question is, how come we get judgment from courts, and instead of it to bring closure, as I always ask, it brings more confusion? Is it a problem from bench, the bar, or mischief of the litigants, or misunderstanding of the litigants here?
Both problem from the bench and problem from the bar. And the reason why I said so is that sometimes the bench, maybe because of political interferences. For example, State High Court and Federal High Court has concurrent jurisdiction on some matters. Now, you can see the State High Court giving judgment, and someone running also to the same Federal High Court that have concurrent jurisdiction with the State High Court, maybe to get same judgment or to quash decision of a court that has concurrent jurisdiction with the Court of First Instance. And these have created a lot of problems for the judiciary. Now, lawyers too, in a bid to justify money that are being paid to them, professional fees by their clients. So they're also helping in messing up the system. But with what the agency is doing currently, now, if you get such, there are things in place to punish judges who are found worthy of doing so. Now, if such goes in appeal, there is a punitive cost for lawyers who are promoting such, and we must also be intentional. We must be intentional in doing this, because if the judiciary, like I said, if we are not able as an arm of government, if we are not able to ensure due process and then accountability and access to justice, now the judiciary will definitely collapse. So most of all these things are primarily caused by lawyers too. Lawyers, because they want to justify the pace of the paid to them by their clients, their professional fee. They also want to do mischief and be able to get judgment at all costs. So these have really caused a very big problem. And I am so happy that NJC is doing a lot now in correcting these anomalies.
Let's talk about judicial precedents and the bearing that they have on determining subsequent cases. When we refer to, cases like Abegunde and the bearing that it has on defections, it appears as if judicial precedents, either it has to do with electoral cases or land cases, have not particularly resolved socio-political issues within the polity. Is there anything that you find wrong with our jurisprudence that need to be elevated, such that this judicial precedents can carry more weight?
Yeah, I want to commend the Attorney General of the Federation, Fagbemi SAN, and for what they move, that the things he set in place with the aim of correcting this. Now he has set up he has set up a committee that will look at our laws, review them, and then reform some of them. Currently, there are 54-member Presidential Law Reform Review Committee that will look into this. Now he is also codifying and recodifying our laws. And all the 36 attorneys general of the subnationals have keyed into it, so that at the federal government, as they are codifying and recodifying this, amending and reforming this, now it will be stepped down at the subnational too. Because if we don't do this and then amend some of these our laws, it will become a bad precedent. And if we don't correct it right now that the move is ongoing, it's going to cause more problem for the judiciary. So currently, the Presidential Law Reform Committee, Review Committee, have started work. And I'm sure at the end thereof, some of these obnoxious laws will be reformed. Some of them will be reviewed. There will be amendments. And then once we have all this, we'll get it right. So as it is going on currently at the federal level, the subnational have also keyed into it, and we are currently doing so that it will be a thing of the past.
So, Honorable Commissioner, let's go back to the issue of basic. I like to stay around the issues of housekeeping, and I'll use two instances. And the reason I'm asking this question is because I do not know whether the reprimand is sufficient enough. Maybe perhaps is why the perpetrators of this crime within the judicial sector, whether it's bar and bench, continue. So if you show up in court, I think the basic thing to find out is whether that court has jurisdiction to hear that particular case. But we see that even some judges entertain those particular cases. They may not speak on or rule around the merit of the case. Maybe it does ancillary issue, but a ruling is a ruling, and you have to set it aside if you're not comfortable with it according to our law. So I use that as a first instance. We've also seen, even at higher levels of court, where justices have adjudicated over reliefs not sought and dragging into some of the flags that our judicial system has gotten in the last few years in that sense. So what level of reprimand do you think is necessary to begin to send literal shock waves like the economic policy of President Bola Tinubu did within the economy that is required within the judicial sector. I mean, something drastic, something earth-shaking, something that spells you can't do that here. One strike, you're out.
Thank you very much. Let me also commend the AGF too for the Administration of Criminal Justice Act protocols that and guidelines that he just approved. And at the sub-national too, we also have the Administration of Criminal Justice Law of various states, the protocols. We have the protocols now and the minimum standard for this administration of the Criminal Justice Act and the Criminal Justice Law for the various states of the Federation. Now, under these, most states have reviewed the administration of criminal justice laws. And with this protocol in place, now lay prosecutors has been prohibited by these protocols. Lay prosecutors cannot prosecute. Now, stay of proceedings have also been abolished by these protocols. Now, so this will go a long way in helping us. For example, in Delta State, they have amended the Administration of Criminal Justice Law that if you go to court as a lawyer and you don't have a good case and you want to use that, your inability to prepare yourself in order to defend the bad case that you are involved in, and you keep asking for adjournment, if you do so first, second, the third one, there will be punitive cost against you. This is to curtail this. Now, for stay of proceeding, it has been prohibited. Now, so you cannot just come because a matter is not favoring you. You rush to another court to now get an order of the court and asking the court of first instance to say proceeding pending the determination of that matter at the upstairs. So these are the reformation that the Administration of Criminal Justice Act and Administration of the Federation and Administration of Criminal Justice laws of various states have brought into play. And it's a very good reform. And you see, this reform have created a paradigm shift from the retributive justice system we had to the restorative justice system we ought to have. Because the justice system we had before now is a justice system that uses two approaches in crime disposal, punishment and vengeance. But the Administration of Criminal Justice Act of 2019 and that of the various states have intentionally moved from using punishment and vengeance as approaches for crime disposal to using reconciliation, restitution, restoration, and reintegration. And it is helping us, especially in court deconjunctions.
All right. As we continue to reflect on, reforms in the judiciary, I asked the first question deliberately, to see your position on these issues. And again, against the backdrop of even subsequent judicial decisions that have come through from the courts, it appears as if there are no guarantees that even the big stick wielded by the NJC can go so far. And another electioneering year is upon us in a couple of months down the line. So as a result, perhaps this is responsible for the position that some have expressed, that the NJC itself should be scrapped, that it is counterproductive to the ideals of a federal system, and that the idea of submitting disciplinary processes to an executive body is against the idea of a federation. What are your thoughts on this? And what other ways can the judiciary exercise discipline within its own sector?
Thank you very much. Post-election litigation in Nigeria have really tested the judiciary strength. And despite the pressure, most judgments have been consistent. I must be sincere with you. Most judgments have been consistent with legal precedent. So we must do everything possible to safeguard the judicial independence as national security imperative. So the judiciary should not just be vilified when it delivers unpopular judgments. This erodes the rule of law. But like I said, what the NJC, what they are doing in discipline erring judges is commendable. And then for the legal practitioners too, in the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee, the measure in place, the rules have been amended, and the rules of professional RPC, the rules of the RPC, the rules for professional conduct for legal practitioners 2020. It has been amended, and lawyers have it. They read it every blessed day. They know that when they go contrary to this rule, because Rule 55 provides that failures of all to uphold all the rules in the professional conduct will be tantamount to professional misconduct. So they know the implication once they appear before the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee. For judges also, they also know the implications. So the laws, the rules in place, and the laws in place, the policies in place are enough to help in checking the segmenting the excesses of lawyers and the judges. And I want to believe that with those in place, the bar and the bench must also on their own insist on integrity, insist on ethics and continuous improvement, and then we'll definitely get it right at the end of the whole matter.
All right. As we're going to wind down, democracy, sovereignty of states is also about optics, which is why America uses both their hard power, military, wealth, and soft power, using Hollywood and all of that. And one of the things, I like the way Leonard Silk, who is a member of the Inner Bar, Olisagbakoba, puts it. He calls it administration of justice and judicial administration. And of course, the administration of justice, there's a lot of things that has been done. There's room for improvement. But judicial administration is one of the hot buttons within the judiciary that a lot of people don't want to touch. As the CJN sitting on a lot of committees chairing all of this in terms of discipline. But where I'm going to with that foundation I laid, which I would like you to speak to, I started with the issue of optics, because when we see politically exposed persons, children, wives or husband find their way into the judiciary the way we see and the proliferation we see in Nigeria, already we have a very horrible trust quotient for the system. And when you add that to that weak trust quotient, it complicates and makes it even convoluted. So I would like you to speak to the issue of how to manage it as to helping the public to have better confidence in the judicial system, because we see now governors' wives are becoming judges. We even had a senator one time who talked about his own wife helping his colleagues, and that became a source of controversy. He said that's not what he meant. We can go on and on. Their children, and even judges' children becoming judges. If this is not properly checked, whatever it is we're doing in terms of administration of justice, with a poor judicial administration, is going to be counterproductive. Do you think so, or do you agree with me?
Thank you very much, Mr. Geoffrey. You see, the laws providing for requirements for one occupying the position you have mentioned, being a member of the bench, is expressed. Irrespective, so if someone is qualified to occupy a particular position, especially in the bench, and the person meets the requirement of the law, I cannot be advocating that the person will be denied. If I assuming that my father is a judge and I am qualified after applying to be a judge, there is no law prohibiting me from being the judge. You cannot use because my father is a judge and then I applied, and then it will also seem like a family business. No, we have laws. We have laws providing for these positions and the necessary requirement for these provisions. Now, but I said, what the NJC is doing and what the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee, what they are doing, is already serving as a check and balance to regulate the conduct of members of the inner bar, members of the outer bar, and the bench. And let me also say this, all we need in this country is, especially in court administration, is to be able to overhaul our court administration. I tell you, we need in our court administration, we need a CEO to be in charge of our court administration, a seasoned administrator, not even a lawyer, because you discover that when we have a head of court who is a CJ, we now have the person who is in charge of court administration, who is the chief registrar of the court and is a lawyer, if we're able to get a seasoned public administration to be CEOs of the court, I want to submit that we will definitely get it right. Now, the CEO in charge of the administration of all the court processes, while the head of the court, the chief judge, will be in charge of the court proceedings. You know, so when lawyers are not good managers in terms of, they're not good administrators in terms of administration of criminal justice. So I want to advocate that the only way this can also help, the only way we can help in reforming the administration of justice system in Nigeria is to have a non-lawyer to be in charge, to be a CEO of a court, while a lawyer will hail the court. When we put these things in place, our federal government also must do everything possible to invest more in judicial infrastructures and automations. This will also help in regulating the processes and regulating the activities, the judicial process in the court. And I assure you that when we do this, Nigerians will now stand to defend the court. Sir? What did you say?
You can wrap up in 15 seconds.
I said Nigeria must defend the courts as the arbiter of justice, and not only when it suits them. You know, sometimes when a matter does not suit you, that is when you see people protecting. When it suits you, people will not protect. So I want to encourage Nigerians that we must stand up to defend the court as the last hope of the common man. And I also want to say, on a final note, that the rule of law should not just be a mere slogan. It is the soul of democratic governance, and the judiciary is a custodian of that soul. So we must do everything possible to protect this. We either strengthen it or we lose the nation.
Indeed, and the issues are complex, but not beyond us. We must anchor at this point, and thank you very much, sir, Mr. Ben Udo, the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Ebonyi State. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you so much for thanking me.
All right, from this point, we'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll turn down on the hard talk and bring you something very, very interesting. We're going to piggyback to the 90s and then come back to 2025, where our guest has launched a new music video. Stay with us for this conversation. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're going to tell you what you're watching in just a moment. But let's bring in our guests, two veterans in their own right. The one and only Alex O is in the building, veteran musician.
Thank you.
Now, Gen Z, just sit by your parents and ask questions and learn. That's all I can say to Gen Z. And we also have veteran broadcaster herself, Cordelia Okwe. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Good to see you.
Same here.
You haven't aged in that by any stretch of imagination.
Oh, praise be more like it.
Even Alex, so I was expecting something, but
walking stick.
So let's begin with let's not get into that video first. Let's talk about the jeans. What are you guys eating?
Apple is
no, that cannot be true.
I think
let's start with Alex.
You wake up every day and thank God. Thank him for the previous day, and also thank him for the day that's coming. Yeah. Do the best you can not to do whatever it is. Indulge, you know, in moderation, and do the best you can to stay away from whatever will bring your body and spirit and soul down. You know, so. You know, you just, life just goes on.
Cordelia, is that also your recipe?
Well,
in addition to that?
Yeah, Thanksgiving is a major part, because if we go by the things we're seeing today, you'll be grumbling all day. And there's something it does to the spirit. It creates a form of darkness around anybody. I'm not talking religiously now, naturally. So taking whatever you have in moderation and in Thanksgiving also helps. And, you know, for our work now, you know, our work is more of being lively and all. It helps a lot too. Smiling helps.
Be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and so thank God for our profession. Look at Buki now, look at yourself.
You're equally...
Am I in the mix here?
Looking fresh.
I want the Gen Z, you know, I told them to sit by their parents. So perhaps they've obeyed and they are seated. They are wondering, who is Alex O? So maybe you walk us through. We know you. they don't know or they may not know. So walk us through as brief as you can when you came into music so that they'll understand why I told them to sit by their parents.
Okay.
And how you got here.
Okay, I'm one of those who were able to figure out that they had the talent, in music, from the primary school. So I continued. All I needed to do was to look for where the sockets were, and plug in and continued with it. And I came to Lagos, started the journey.
When was this?
I came to Lagos in 1983. Tried to get into the record companies. It wasn't possible. So luckily for me, I met the late Steve Rhodes, Uncle Steve Rhodes. Yes, he taught me how to sing. He taught me how to sing. Then later on, I met Lemmy Jackson, who taught me how to produce music. I worked with him in almost all those songs that you listen, the Mandators, the Majek, when you check the back of the sleeves, you see my name there, backup singing and all those whole. So we worked, and then in 1988, Polygram gave me my first chance, the chance for my first album, Getting Loose. And then from then on, the journey continued.
Well, I'm not a Gen Z, and I'm not a baby boomer either. But I know Alex O, and I'm spoiled for choice now. I don't know whether to start from the 90s, but for the Gen Z, Alex O is to the 90s, what the likes of Davido's and Burna Boys are to the 2020s. But for you to appreciate him more, let's go back to the 90s and get a feel of the hit tunes of those days. Okay, we're listening to the new, we'll get to the old that we used to listen to during those days of Sunday Rendezvous on NTA. Do the millennials remember that program? Alex is nodding. Yes, he remembers. So, but let's get a feel of his new single titled "Take a Break." Beautiful. And the message is relevant to these times. There's so much to worry about, and it's important to take a break.
Yes, in between. And relax. Have some good time, have some fun. Body no be wood, and life is too short. And when you relax, you come back refreshed, come back fresh ideas, and you think better, you do your job better.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so let's come to Cordelia now. She co-produced, directed the video. What is what informed the idea of the artificial intelligence component, which is dominant in the video?
All right. When we say dominant, that means there's something else that is there. The only thing that is, in quote, real human, in quote, in the video is just the music. So every single thing in the video is AI. And the reason we decided to do that is a simple one. The world is changing. Even before we started the show, we were talking about that runway thing by Afegboy, and you see how the world is going gaga over and about it. Every second, a new thing is dropping in the AI sphere. For instance, there is this Niger Film Festival platform we belong to, is all about AI. Right now, this moment, what they're talking about is the fact that, a particular app has just dropped a new update. So it's moving very fast. And the sooner one plugs into it, the better. We, for instance, we said, okay, making music videos can be very expensive. This one, if you watch this one, you will think, we've even had people who called us to say, why would you spend so much money on the video? This is, sorry, now AI, Yeah, people actually believed. That's why at the beginning of the video, there is a disclaimer that everything here is AI. And so the sooner you plug in, the better, because with the AI, you're able to fly. Yes. You're able to fly. You can do BBL with AI if you want. You must tell the truth that, okay, wait, so in real life, when you see me, it shall not be like this. That is where some regulation and all will be coming into play. But we just felt, for us to achieve some of the things we want to do as filmmakers, so I'm a broadcaster, yes, but also a filmmaker. To achieve some of those things, we need to tap in. So this was the experiment, an experiment that paid off but expensive experiment, you know, because of maybe the level of the naira to the dollar. Even in the diaspora, it's quite expensive to a VO3, for instance, to get 1 5-second clip. And not that the 5 seconds clip will give you what you want immediately. You could have 1 or 2 more regenerations, and that is a lot of money going too. So we just wanted to do something new. And in this region, I think we'll be like the first people to have a known artist have a full video beginning to end that is all AI. You know, so we just wanted to make a mark. We like making marks. For instance, way back, he was one of the first people to have a pidgin English rap recorded. He did that first. So making marks sometimes, even though history may not write everything down and retain everything because everything is like this, but you know you've done something. And I think whenever we watch this video, I say to myself that, guy, we try you.
Also, just your thoughts.
Yes, and well, to round up what I was trying to say.
Okay.
So 5 records after that one, you know, my career peaked, and I asked myself, what do I do to upgrade myself, to prepare for the future? And the first thing that came to my mind was travel out. See what you can learn out there, maybe study, whatever it is. And I had to. And out there, you know, played music with all kinds of musicians from America, from everywhere. I never left music. I was always performing, was always producing, and, you know, so I also had the opportunity to study film, digital film production, which encapsulates 3D, 2D animation, compositing, motion graphics, and all that. So we've been into this kind of work, you know, for quite a while. And by the time we teamed up, I realized, okay, she has the same background. Okay, come on now, let's go. So AI came in as a tool that makes it easier for us. Because even from the time I came back to Nigeria, a lot of people don't know, I have been doing post-production jobs for Nollywood producers. Some of them, you know, even, what do you call it, visual effects, soundtracks, and all those kinds of things. And when it comes to the visuals, there are challenges. To create or simulate a dangerous scene, you understand, it can be a bit of a problem. AI has come in now to help us to be able to, so I can simulate a very dangerous accident scene that is more believable, that you know, brings out the entire feeling that, you know, people want you to feel towards it.
The reality of the new reality.
Yes.
So this is more like an accelerator in that sense. But we're talking AI now for the Gen Zs. Let's go back to way back, because they must know you today.
Yes.
So let's play that video from way back. Do it.
Your style.
You can hear
go ahead, Jeffrey.
This is as far back. What year was this video again?
Yeah,
this song. Let's even use.
This song was 1992.
And you were sounding already like you're not Nigerian.
Yeah, so well, it was actually the initial challenge I had. My very first album was so foreign that a lot of people actually thought, you know, they didn't think I was from here. And that informed the decision for me to start bringing the local elements during my second outing, like the pidgin rap, make we take some time to bubble and shuffle. After all the hustle and bustle. Oh, you even know it.
I should know, I'm a millennial. I was old enough to know.
So I had to bring all,
I'm happy.
I had to bring all that in. I brought the choruses in Igbo, you know, and all those local elements, and people quickly identified with it. I think it paid off. I think it worked out well for me. You know.
Oh boy,
so,
I wish we had more time. But I have a question.
Okay, I just want you to, you know, reflect on some of the transitions, some of the changes that you've seen, you know, from the time that you were a dominant force in the music industry in the 90s, as against what we have now. Either it's, you know, lyrical composition of songs or the production.
Yes, in terms of lyrical content, I think we did a better job than they're doing today. And one of the reasons why that happened was because every record company had artist and repertoire department that worked with the sales department. You bring your song, they listen to it. Can we sell what he's saying? Who's going to buy it? Will it work? You understand? So your songs were checked properly before they start to put their money in. Today, technology changed everything. Almost every artist has a studio now. And if you have an uncle who has a little bit of money, they will say, okay, help him make some beat, put something together, you know, and the guy sings. It's more of a gamble these days. Will it work? Will it not work? It may work, it may not work. Those days, you needed to make sure, in fact, you were given a very short time in the studio to record all that you needed to do. So you needed to do your homework very, very well. Prepare properly before going. Yes. So when you get to the studio, all you do is put it down, quick. Because if you don't finish and you're out, you're on your own. And when you come back, it's okay, let me come back and finish the mix. When you come back, it will be difficult because there are over 1,001 knobs and buttons to press on the mixer. And as you're leaving the studio, somebody else is coming in to use it, and they will mess everything up. Today, when you finish working, you save your work and walk out of the studio. When you come back, you just load what's... So you're starting from the last... Yes, you start from the last thing you did. So there's this tendency to... I mean, there's this opportunity for you to keep improving on what you did the last time.
Fantastic, fantastic. Cordelia, 30 seconds, that's all you have. Your last thoughts.
And while Cordelia is doing that, what is it with this team, Cordelia and Alex?
It's a production team, not me, God.
Is that all there is to it?
Yeah, we also have other people in the team.
You've come to our industry to steal a very beautiful flower. Could it be Cordelia?
It concerns you.
Well, it's all God. Sometimes when you find somebody you are compatible with in so many ways, let's say about 90%, yeah, the only thing you can do is to continue to move
I like
forward.
to speak straight. Are you getting married or you're married? What exactly is that?
Don't mind yourself. Ask me a question.
Yes. Okay,
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
I'd like you to confirm that for the first time on the morning brief on Channels
we're
Television.
So, but 20 seconds now, that's all we have.
It's not me. This is that. Okay, 20 seconds. All right, on a very serious note, now a lot of people are worried about the AI influx and all that. But I think that, yes, some people may lose their jobs, which is the truth, but I think whatever you do, there is space for you in the AI space. Yes. I'm even learning. There are a lot of things to learn. Even a makeup artist would find something to do therein. A cameraman would find something to do because you understand camera movements. So prompting for people with camera movements becomes easier for you. So we'll just tap in. And if you want to watch the full video, you can watch it on Alex O Official. It's a beautiful video, even though we did it ourselves. I'll say it myself, but I think it's beautiful.
Congratulations to both of you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all grounds, for the music video, for the marriage, for...
Buki.
Yes.
Buki.
Alex O,
what have I done?
Nigerian veteran, legendary pop star, and also a veteran herself, broadcaster Cordelia Okpe. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate
Thank you for your time. We do appreciate this.
Thank you so much. All right, that's it on the program. Thanks for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.
Sunrise Daily is up next, so stay with Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.